Okay.
Okay, ready for this?
Yes.
This is... oh my gosh. What am I trying to say? This is Film School Lifeline, episode 7, Mark. Okay, that was a loud one. Okay, it is June. Happy Pride Month!
Happy Pride, everyone. I specifically love where Pride Month is located because May is AAPI month. So it's like I get back to back. It's like, it's my time of year.
Oh, that's so funny. I was trying to think, March is Women's History Month.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of a gap for me, but...
Wait, so like March and then 3 months later is June and 2 months later is your birthday, sorry. I was thinking Virgos, like September Virgos.
August Virgos where it at, though. Well, I'll be so honest.
Okay. But yes, it is Pride Month.
And with that, as two queer people, we figured that what better way to... I mean, I guess by the time this comes out, it'll be like mid-June, but like to kick off Pride Month by talking about some queer cinema and just queer stuff in general, because what else is there to talk about during the month of June?
Oh, yeah.
Nothing.
You do not talk about anything else, or else you're homophobic. But,
But yeah, okay, how do we want to kick off this episode? Wait, okay, first and foremost, how are you celebrating Pride Month?
Oh, God.
Doing anything fun?
Oh, I am going to Mexico.
Ooh,
yes.
Okay.
And yes, it is partially for research for my next film. But my director and I, Rose, who was on our podcast.
Yes! Our first and only interview right now. That is going to change
that
very
will change.
soon.
Mark my
very,
words.
very soon.
Rose is my director. We are working together for Cycle 2. And we are going to Mexico for 5 days this month. It is, like, majority of it is going to be for research because we are doing a queer Mexican story. So it's going to be just a lot of going to museums and just really taking in the history of the person we're talking about. Centered around the Mexican Revolution. But we also plan on having fun out there, and it's June, and I think
Will you be there during, like, are you in Mexico City?
Yeah, we'll be in CDMX for
do you think you'll be there during Pride Month, or maybe there'll be Pride festivities?
I think that's what Rose said.
That would be awesome.
I know.
That would be so cool. No, okay, because one of the coolest things that I've ever experienced, and it was not on purpose at all, was last summer. I went on a month-long Europe trip with half of it was just my family, or like my whole immediate family, and we went for a wedding. And then the other half of it was my brother and I, and then 2 of my best friends from home, who ended up joining a little bit later, like traveled from hostel to hostel. But of course, the first half of our trip, we got there like June, like 16th or something, like mid-June, and we happened upon Pride events going on in Portugal. We happened across London Pride. We happened across, like, just in general, we were walking around exploring, and like London's was the coolest thing ever because we happened to get there on the day of the parade. We're exploring, we hear all this music, and we're like, oh my gosh. The closer we get, all of a sudden we see huge flags hanging from like this row of streets, and it was like beautiful, and I have a picture, but like rainbows everywhere, and there were so many people dressed up, and it was just such a fun environment. And so then of course, like, I was like, Mom, Dad, I'll be right back, and I brought my brother, and actually this was the little bit of overlap when one of my best friends, Megan, was there, and so the 3 of us were like hanging out and partying a little bit around all the stuff that was going on, and so that was super fun. But it was just like really cool. It was really cool to experience Pride globally, because again, like, Pride is universal, but seeing how different cultures like celebrate or whatever, and like, okay, London's a little bit different because it's a bunch of white people mostly, but it's similar to the US
European culture,
but just European culture. And then like Portugal was really cool because like everyone was speaking in Portuguese, and so like didn't fully understand what's going on, but I know a little bit of Spanish, so I felt like I could pick up on some stuff. But like everyone was so nice, and again, just the environment was so loving and accepting, and it was just really cool to witness. So I hope I know that you get that.
I mean, even if not, like, I still think being in a different country during Pride Month, I feel like will just be such a, like, I think a great experience.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited.
That is very
it's
exciting.
Like a few weeks away, so.
I'm so excited for you. It's going to be so fun. And just to be able to go do something like that for research, for your story, is huge.
Yeah. No, it's really genuinely awesome. Very huge. Like, it's such an amazing opportunity that I get to have. But, yeah, other than that, like, no real, like, big plans for Pride. I wish I could go to parades, but I think the parade this weekend is when I have family members visiting.
Yeah, I was going to say, the way I'm celebrating Pride is me and a bunch of Dodge queers are going to Pride this.
Ooh, Rose?
So, I need to reach out to Rose. But, sorry, okay, so it started with really wanted to go to do something this month because I was like, I need to move. Like, I'm in California now. There's a ton of great Pride parades in Southern California, just in California in general. Like, I know San Francisco's is huge. LA Pride is huge. San Diego Pride is huge. And I was like, let's see if there's any that I can go to. LA Pride is this weekend. I was like, this is perfect. I have nothing going on. Great. And so I was trying to think of who could go, and you weren't free. And so I was like, dang it. Like, who else? And so then I reached out to Emily, who is, she just graduated, but she's a TWP, or like the writers program / like show running program. Her and I have become really good friends. And so I reached out to her being like, any chance you're going to Pride this weekend? And so then we ended up getting lunch recently and catching up, which was super fun. So we decided we were going to go. And then Asta reached out to me and was like, if you happen to be doing anything this month, just let me know because I'd love to join. And I was like, yeah, beautiful, perfect. And so then, it was just kind of fun. Whereas from there, it's just like we've been asking, or honestly, I haven't done that great of a job, but like Emily's been asking around to different people. She's like, here are people I think might want to go and whatever. And so it's slowly starting to build up. But like, if nothing else, even if it was just us 2 or 3, like we would have a great time. And so I'm really excited about that. Like, it'll be fun. And like, I happened upon the stuff in Europe, but the only one that I'd intentionally gone to was like the Dallas Pride, and like it was fine. Like, it was fun. Me and one of my friends went, and we had a really good time. But when we went, it was like very corporate, and I don't know if that's just like consistent around the board. And, like, obviously it's fun when you see like the people handing out stuff, but at the end of it I was like, okay, I have all these stress balls that are rainbow and like, like some candy and whatever, and I was like, it was fun, and like seeing all the people was fun. But like, one of the things that Emily was telling me was the most fun part of Pride is like running into random people and then making friends with them, then going out with them after, or doing stuff like that, where it's like where the day takes you. In Dallas, it was very much you had to intentionally go to this parade. Like, you wouldn't just happen upon it. It was in an area where you had to like know you were going there, so you would park, you'd walk, you'd get to where it was happening, and then afterwards there wasn't really events happening after it because it wasn't like walking distance from bars or anything social. So I think that's what I'm really excited about, is just kind of seeing how the day takes us.
No, LA Pride is genuinely huge. Like,
I know.
It spans.
I'm a little nervous, but I think it'll be really fun. We'll have a good time regardless. But okay, I think this is a perfect segue though. You mentioned that your story, I mean, I know this, but they don't. Your story that you're working on for next semester is a queer story.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. So it's gonna be historical. So it's co-written by Rose and one of our friends in the screenwriting program, Romy, who is also queer and Mexican. And it's going to be about the man who led the Mexican Revolution in the 1910s, early 1900s, Emiliano Zapata. And it's been widely speculated and also kind of confirmed at this point that Emiliano was bisexual. And so we're going to be, the story is going to be about the last night, his last night with his lover, before he goes on with this one plan that could just, I think, redefine the war. I haven't gotten the script yet. I'm sorry, Rose and Romy, if you're listening, and I got it all wrong. But it's basically a queer story surrounding Emiliano, and it's gonna be a dramatic story, and it's gonna be there's gonna be lots of nuances in the script where they're gonna be talking about the war, but it's actually about the relationship and how they feasibly cannot continue it for both of their sake and their health.
Yeah.
Because it was abusive, and lots of power dynamics, and it's really fucking interesting, and I'm very, very excited to get started on it. And our crew is majority queer. Majority now. We just got an ally on our crew, which was quite literally confirmed like an hour ago. We got an ally. but who I have worked with. This is my third project working with him.
Shout out Anthony.
Anthony, love you so much.
We love you.
Like genuinely, I cannot wait to work with Anthony again. Third time in a row.
That's so exciting.
Like, which is it's genuinely exciting. But
it's
like,
so funny. He's a huge ally, and shout out to him too, because I don't want to take your spotlight right now, but I am taking a class this summer. You know about this class.
Yes.
It's called Actors Filmmakers Workshop, and basically it's an excuse of a class to make projects over the summer, and like they're smaller scale than a cycle, but like a little bit bigger than a 3-2-1 it seems. So kind of this fun in between, and I have realized that I might have some interest in dabbling in directing, like seeing what it's like. Cinematography is still like my love, whatever, not wanting to switch or anything, but I was like, this is the perfect time, because in this class you get to do whatever you want, like as long as you can build a crew and whatever. And so I was gonna try to write direct something this summer, and the story I'm doing is queer, and Anthony's editing it for me, so he's gonna be he's figuring all that out this summer. So
but yeah, very very excited for where the future takes me with all the queerness and like
celebrating Pride Month and keeping it going all year round.
Researching a bisexual man during Pride Month in his home country, like for a film, who could ask for more? Like,
literally could not ask for more than that. That's so exciting.
Very, very exciting.
But yeah, okay. So because it's Pride Month, we wanted to talk a bit about some of our favorite queer cinema, or in general, you were bringing this up before we started recording, was just media in general that the gays tend to gravitate towards,
like queer adjacent sort of media, like stuff the community like really tends to like,
or even like small things in media that aren't actually queer, but people are like, that could be like, I want it to be. Recently, and this isn't a spoiler because it's not real, but one thing that I've been seeing a lot is everyone really wants oh my gosh, why am I blanking on her name? In Bridgerton. I'm a big Bridgerton fan. Eloise and Cressida. I know everyone wants them to be lesbians, and I could not agree more.
Oh, I need it.
Quite literally.
Because I see it too.
I know, I
see it.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Because also, Cressida, I can't think of her actual name. Like, the actress herself, she is queer.
What?
And, yeah, I just found that out recently. No. And she has a girlfriend, and she posted, the reason I figured this out was because I think some tabloid like made an article talking about her most recent post, but she was like, happy Pride Month, I'm in love with a woman, like something like very blatant, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. But anywho, besides the point, I have been anxiously awaiting those last 4 episodes to come out for Bridgerton, and also I am with all the people on TikTok agreeing that I see it could happen, and it should happen. And I think the best theory that I have is that hopefully Cressida marries Lord Devlin, because then Lord Devlin can go hunt and do all his like animal things, and then Eloise can be a spinster, and then they can live happily ever after as roommates. They were roommates, and that's my dream for them.
They can be roommates in a house upstate, on a farm upstate.
Upstate, where he's out hunting and frolicking in the fields. I think it's perfect. The 3 of them together.
Honestly,
fun little
Shonda land.
If you're listening,
right.
The people, the people want it. But yeah, okay. Do you want to go ahead? What's something that you queer cinema or queer adjacent?
Because that's the thing. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of queer cinema. Is the thing. Like,
honestly, okay.
There's staple movies that I just absolutely adore, but like it's not a large number.
Honestly, I was looking back, and that's kind of how I have felt too recently. But first, I think I was just telling you about this, but I think the first mainstream like piece of queer media that I watched like in theaters or something was Love Simon, which I know is kind of polarizing now, because there's definitely things about it that, I mean, it's a sad story, like getting outed, like it's horrible, right? And I mean, it's very real for a lot of people, but like one thing with queer media is, and a lot of people, this has been a lot of discourse around it lately and just in the past couple of years, is that we don't always want tragic queer stories. And it seems that so many of them have been historically like tragic where someone is outed, or like someone dies, or something like just bizarre. And this isn't just like film. This is like books and television and all these other things.
All types of media. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the first things that I watched. But I also remember, even when watching it, I was still touched because like it was really sad. And I guess the ending, like looking back, wasn't great, but it did have a happier ending given everything that happened.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh my gosh, this touched me so much. And I was like, why was I so affected by this movie?
No, because like that's also the thing, like I feel like queer media nowadays, I feel like you can sense a shift in queer media nowadays where it's like not like everyone's fucking sick of it always being a sad ass story, and like honestly, like one of my favorite pieces of queer media, like queer cinema that I watched recently, and it was because of TP journals, was Wong Kar-wai's Happy Together. And
I haven't seen that one.
That's like it surrounds a gay male couple in Argentina. And it's an abusive ass relationship. And so it's just like it kind of follows the same vein where it's just like people in the heteronormative society just always view queerness as adversity, and they always like, oh, because it's adversity, we need to show these people like going through it, and they, like, you know, like
where's the queer joy?
Yeah,
like,
I know.
And it is getting better, but there still is so much of that. Because even another thing, a movie that I loved recently, and I'm about to butcher the title, but the We Are Strangers, my god. Why am I blanking? But you know exactly. It has strangers in the title, and I'm so mad that
All of Us Strangers.
All of Us Strangers, yes. I was like thinking we're not really strangers, but then I was like, that's the game that people play. You know, the card game where you get to know people. I was like, that's not right. All of Us Strangers. I watched that one recently. Beautifully done. Cinematography, beautiful. But that one was a sad movie too. God. And I'm just like, guys, where's the happiness? Where's the fun? But yeah.
Yes. Also, these examples we're shooting out never to diminish the actual artistry that these films represent.
Beautiful.
I am floored by each of these films. And this like one thing where like that I'm talking about does nothing to like diminish.
Oh yeah,
it's like my appreciation for it.
Another one that I know you just watched recently, and one that I love too, is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Beautiful, but also sad, and I'm just like, all these films are so sad, but they're beautiful. Like, and there's a reason that they're made and that they're watched and that they're successful, and it's because they're beautifully told stories. And I also think, and this isn't at the fault of any director, writer, whoever, I think probably one of the reasons that these are still the types of stories that are constantly made is because in a similar way, and I would say this isn't just with queerness, this is with any minority group, is that you have to be so much more exceptional for your thing to get made.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be these like grandiose ideas or like endings or whatever that almost like just makes it that much better, so then it's made. Because you're not really, and this is a good and bad, it's like you're not really seeing mediocre queer film or mediocre minority content, because it either needs to be exceptional or it's not going to get made. And so I don't know, I feel like that's probably a part of it that I haven't really thought about enough and haven't done enough research, so maybe I'm just spitballing.
One thing I feel like one thing I have realized that I'm also kind of just like realizing now is like, I feel like with queer cinema, especially like the ones we've just talked about, like it's so, I appreciate it because it is so like real world. Like one thing I do appreciate, like yes, all these stories kind of end negatively, but it does they all do like an amazing job at like showing all the like how queer relationships aren't perfect. They're just like any normal relationship. But in another vein, like we've grown up with all these rom-coms that show that, oh, this relationship's so perfect, this Nicholas Sparks book relationship is like oh, picture perfect, like everything worked out for them in the end, they're together, they're happy, you know, like everything comes to fruition towards the end, which through like
everything their love persists.
And like the love and the romance throughout all queer cinema movies, God, it's so good. Like it's so fucking good. but then it just like crashes and burns at the end, and they're forced to be apart. I'm like, okay, where's our perfect rom-com ending? Like,
you know what? And so then shout out to But I'm a Cheerleader, because that is one of the examples of like a movie made a while ago with some phenomenal acting. It's hilarious.
Yes.
The premise itself is like, it's a dark comedy because they literally go to a conversion camp, like, but then they all end up finding their love and like being confident in themselves, which is like so sweet and fun. But like they still touched on tough themes while making a joke of not a joke in like a not taking it seriously, but they were able to make a lighthearted version of like, no, these places actually exist and this might be funny in this context, this film, like, and that all works out. But think about it for a second, these are actually happening. So you can have these heavy themes while still having a fun, beautiful ending. I don't know, that's a fun movie, and I remember the first time I watched it, I was dying laughing.
It was
so funny.
Like, it was so good, especially the things you've done for the community.
How are we going to top our costumes for Halloween this next year?
I'm still our Halloween costumes last year, we did a trio costume with our friend Vanya, who will be coming on soon.
Yes.
Mark our words. And we were both
campers. So I had like the classic pink polo, pink skirt.
And I had like a blue button-up, blue shorts. Okay.
Sorry about that. The camera cut off for a second, and so we're back.
Yes. Okay, so we were talking about our costumes for Halloween last year. So yes, we were the campers of the conversion camp, but I'm a cheerleader, and our friend Lavanya played the RuPaul character, who was one of the camp counselors that were trying to convert us, and it was so good.
And the shirt says "Straight is great," which is just hilarious. And God, that movie is so good.
We had like at least one random person actually get our costumes that night.
No, there was a couple people, but I do know we wore those costumes into one of the school buildings. Like, this is what it was. On the day of Halloween, we had class, and so we tried to convince all our cohort to dress up to class. And I'd say about a third of us did. Like, you and I did, Ivania did, Danny did, Lily,
some Chinese Indies did.
A couple Chinese Indies. Like, so we had a good amount of people that actually did wear stuff. But yeah, there was just a handful. And so then I think before we ended up going out that night, because we ended up going to a bar, which was pretty fun, we walked into like DMAC or something, and I heard them like whisper to each other, and they're like, "Oh, but I'm a cheerleader," and I was like, "Yes."
But yeah, like I am to this day trying to rack my brain of like what we can do.
We'll come up with something good, and it'll be a surprise because
it will be. Yes,
we'll top ourselves somehow.
But yeah, back to queer cinema. Like, yeah, I do hope we finally get like our perfect, just one, at least one, one good one.
I will say though too, I mean, you can't really have an entirely happy story or an entirely sad story. Like, there's definitely nuance, and
of course,
just as life would be. But honestly, I will say the one thing that I'm really happy about is that queer cinema is becoming more and more popular.
Yes.
Like, more and more stuff is being made. So eventually we are definitely going to get some really, really good stuff. And I'd say one really, really good thing we got recently was Everything Everywhere All at Once. And you like, I sometimes forget that was even a queer story, because there was so many heavy themes tackled in it, like just like working class people, racial differences, queerness was a big one. Mother-daughter. Just like, that was such a phenomenal story, and I always forget. No, I mean, I don't forget, but like every time I rewatch it, and I do like to watch that movie somewhat frequently, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a huge part of Joy's like character. Like, it is, and I'm like, oh my god, it's not just
like, it's not treated as a one-off either. They didn't just make her queer, like, okay, diversity hire. Like, it's just like there's like her being queer means a lot to her and Evelyn's dynamic. Like, it's just it's so well done, the Daniels.
Oh my god, I need to rewatch that. I know they're working on something right now.
Are they actually?
Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I read somewhere that, I mean, it's probably still the very, very early stages, but that they are working on stuff.
Yeah. And we are talking about queer cinema a lot, but I would just like to point out that the works of like Heartstopper and Young Royals
oh my god
have done immense things for the queer community, in my opinion. Like, I believe those are just such important stories to tell.
So, funny story about Heartstoppers was, I remember I didn't hop on the train immediately because I usually don't watch TV that much. Like, I have tried to start watching more and more, but like, I've pretty much always been like a movies person.
Yeah.
And so someone was like, you have to watch it, you'll really like it. And eventually I was like, okay, I have the time to watch multiple episodes. Let me watch. Loved the first season. Loved it. So then when the second season came out, I was ready to binge it. And it came out, or I guess I didn't even watch that one right when it came out, but when I was finally able to watch it, I started watching it one night. And that night, I started it probably at a reason. I mean, it was kind of late, but it was probably like 11 o'clock. And then I ended up watching the whole thing and didn't go to sleep till like 4 a.m. And I was like, oh my God, that was not on purpose. Whoops. But it was so good. So I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize I accidentally did all of that.
No, yeah. But like, I feel like Heartstopper specifically, not only just for like just queer relationships, but just like queerness as an identity, I feel like it's done like a whirlwind of help. Like,
oh my gosh.
Like, it's in like a cis Asian man with a black trans woman. Like, yeah. I'm floored. Like,
yeah, that.
And they're all in the same friend group with 2 lesbian friends. And like,
yeah, and like the other great thing about that show too is like, yeah, one of the main characters, like Kit's character, he is grappling with his sexuality, but so many of the other characters are queer, and that's I don't want to say the least interesting thing about them, because it's still fascinating and like a huge part of their identity, and I don't want to dismiss that, but like they're going through other struggles that have nothing to do with their identity. They're confident and comfortable there. Mm-hmm. Their struggles are teenage struggles that you're going through. And then, sorry, the reason I like totally gasped was because Sex Education. One of my favorite TV shows of all time. Phenomenal. And I feel like in the same vein of Heartstoppers, like that one, I'd say Sex Education is a little bit more adult, like just with some of the themes, but like both of those two, both British shows, like, okay, pop off, Brits, for this minute, you win a little bit. But yeah, I love Sex Education. I remember the first time I watched it, it just it floored me.
And also
like
it's in the name, like it is educational, like
oh my gosh,
it's so like buried under, but they are actually teaching so much, not just about sex, but just about queer identity and sexuality, and just like normalizing everything, and just like it's refreshing. It's so important. Like,
and the thing is like, and I mean, I'm by no means perfect, but like for the longest time, not even queerness, but like in general, the topic of sex, which is like a pretty normal conversation for like teenagers, college age, like young adults, things that people talk about all the time, was not something I liked talking about. Like anytime my friends were talking about it, I'd be like, I don't want to be a part of this conversation. Like, or I would just sit silently. And not that I was ever judging, I just was so deeply uncomfortable myself that I wouldn't participate. And so like even watching a show like that, I was learning so much. And there would be times when like I could see myself so much in these characters where I'm like, oh, I am being called out for being uncomfortable. Like I related to Otis so much with the whole like, oh my God, I don't like talking about this. This is weird. But then it's just funny because again, different characters, whatever, but it's just, like you said, refreshing and educational, and just helps with stigma around different topics. And again, beyond just sex or sexuality, or like it's these topics of just navigating high school or young adult relationships, or navigating family relationships, or like, I don't know, it's really refreshing to watch shows and be able to like see yourself in them. And I feel like for the longest time, it wasn't that I didn't see myself in shows. I was just like, oh, like I kind of relate to that. Like that's cool. But I was like, something feels like it's missing. But then shows like that, I'm like, that would have been so nice to watch even just a couple years earlier. Yeah.
And like there really is something just like about queer media that it's just like so hard to describe, because it's not like I see like myself specifically like myself, but I see hints of my experiences through that, which is so important. Like I personally, like coming out scenes I feel like always get me. And
Yes.
I feel like if you know me, like if you're my family, you know I never cry. Like I rarely cry at anything.
Mm-hmm.
But like coming out scenes will usually get me like at the very least teary-eyed. Like the Love Simon coming out scene.
Oh my god, I was
Jennifer
bawling.
Garner, I was like, what the fuck, man. But like also I think the Heartstopper one.
That one, I was bawling.
I quite literally to this day have such a hard time repeating Olivia Colman's line, like, I'm so sorry I'm so sorry you ever felt like
you couldn't talk to me,
yeah,
or whatever.
I'm so sorry, you felt scared, like too scared to tell me that, or like I'm sorry if I ever made you feel like you couldn't tell me that. Without my voice cracking. Like it's such a good line.
So good.
Olivia Colman. But like I'm such a sucker for that, just because like coming out is such a vulnerable sort of experience, and it's just
extremely vulnerable.
Like when media, not just like visual media, but also just like books and like literary stuff, can just capture that just so well,
mm-hmm.
and still make it like true to experiences, like.
It's insane what it can do, and like how seen it can make you feel. And like you said, even if it's not, I don't know if there's ever been like a singular character where I'm like, that is me. But like being able to be like, I relate so heavily to this and I see parts of myself in this character, it's huge. And okay, on the topic of like queer media, one thing that has been huge for me recently too, and I know a lot of people can probably attest to, is like TikTok. As strange and weird as it sounds, and I know there's like this weird overlap of like some older, and not everyone, but some older people don't love TikTok or just like social media in general as like this platform, because they're saying it's taking away from like traditional media or whatever. But like in terms of relating to people and finding friendships or finding people that have gone through like shared or similar experiences, TikTok, you see so many people being vulnerable every day, and not even just vulnerable, but just being themselves, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're wearing an outfit that looks so cool, I would love to wear something like that. Or like the story they're talking about, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can relate to that. And so that's been another way to really identify and get like more comfortable, just like, and the thing is I'm very confident in who I am right now, like, and of course I still have insecurities, there's things I need to work on, but I have grown a lot, and especially, and I'd say like probably the past 2 years I've grown and been way more confident than I've been in a very long time, which is huge for me. But like little things like that help, because I get to be exposed to more than I ever have. And sometimes that can be intimidating and challenging, because you're consuming so much. But on the other hand of that, the flip side is, because you're consuming so much, you realize that there's way more possibilities out there than you expected.
100%. Yeah, no, 100% agree.
I know this is a short episode for us today, which we sincerely apologize. But I guess as we wrap up a little bit, what I always love asking these questions, but what is one thing that you would tell someone younger who might just be figuring out their sexuality or might be questioning, or even if it was to like your younger self?
Don't force heterosexuality onto yourself. Do not. Like, do not. It was so incredibly detrimental, and it was just, don't think that what you're thinking is wrong. Like, because that was what I went through.
Yeah. I
forced myself to tell my friends that I had a crush on a girl. Like, I forced myself to lie to my friends. Because I didn't have a crush on that girl. I just gave a girl's name. Like, I was like, oh yeah, her. I'm like, girl, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, don't force it on yourself. Absolutely not. I would not wish that upon anyone else.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with that. I think for me, one thing that I would, specifically to my younger self, is that it's okay to quote unquote change. Because I feel like for a very long time, I took on one identity and thought that that was certain and that was who I was. But then as I was exposed to more and grew up a little bit more and started having like questioning thoughts and feelings and realizing that, the life that I thought I knew is actually not at all what I think it is. And then going on that journey of learning and being comfortable in like how I identify and who I like and all those different things, it definitely took me time to like come to terms with that, like for myself, much less be able to tell other people. But learning that what I once thought doesn't have to be true today. And it doesn't mean that I was ever lying or that I was like trying to be someone that I wasn't. It just was, I didn't know then. And what I know now is vastly different. I have grown, I've learned, like I'm not 13 years old anymore. Like, again, you're gonna grow as you get older anyway, and you're gonna change and adapt into the person you're meant to become. But like, I feel like I've had a major switch, or like whatever you want to call it, which isn't true because it doesn't mean that it didn't exist before. It just, I didn't know it yet, and it took time, but I'm very proud of like where I am now, and that it's okay that it took time to get to where I was. And there's people too, like one thing that I've really been, again with like TikTok, is I find out that some people come out way later in life because they really didn't know, and that's okay. We live in such a heteronormative society that some people, it takes a really long time, and depending where you grow up or the people you're around, it's a tough pill to swallow, and like it's going to take time, but that is okay. And so that's the one thing that I want to tell people maybe struggling or going through it or being unsure, or even just my younger self. Dang, that's kind of like a heavy note to end on. But you know what? Happy Pride.
Yes, happy Pride, everyone.
Everyone go celebrate now and forever.
Be gay, do crimes.
Be gay, do crimes. Okay, this has been Film School Lifeline.